How's it going, everyone? My name is True Underdog, and today I'll be ranking my favorite fighting games of the decade. Now, unlike past tier lists, this one will be heavily based on my own opinion. Now, I will try to include outside information as well and outside factors, but at the same time, it's not going to be as objective as past videos where I tried to completely remove my own opinion. So with all that in mind, let's have a look back on the best fighting games of the decade. So please bear in mind that as I make this tier list, I likely will move a lot of these game titles around. So if at first I put a fighting game somewhere you don't agree, please wait a little bit before posting something in the comments, especially if it's negative, because chances are I'm going to change where that fighting game actually goes on this tier list. Okay, so let's start off with a very important one. Street Fighter 4. And as is typical for most fighting games, the final iteration is the best one, even if it's not the most famous. The original Street Fighter 4 was so popular, and you could argue it revitalized fighting games. You could certainly make that case, and I would argue that before Street Fighter 4 came out, that Mortal Kombat was actually helping to keep fighting games alive in the 3D era. Everyone looks back on those games and says, well, they're not very competitive, and that's true, maybe not. But they still did keep the spirit of fighting games alive. But as far as fighting games that revived the genre, you gotta talk about Street Fighter 4. That brought back competitive fighting games. And honestly, if you ask me, I still think it's more important and had a bigger impact than Street Fighter 5. Even if you were to argue that Street Fighter 5 is a more polished game at this point and has way more mechanics and the characters might be better in your opinion, you still can't deny that Street Fighter 4 helped pave the way for this new renaissance of fighting games that we now live in. And the same could also be said for a game like Marvel 3. Where are you, Ultimate Marvel 3? There you are, having a hard time finding these logos. So Marvel 3 was also a very big deal, but unlike Street Fighter 4, I think Ultimate Marvel is the superior version, because once the game was finally more balanced, we saw the really creative teams show up. And a lot of people brought up how in Dragon Ball FighterZ, while it is a 3v3 fighting game, the problem is some characters have very strong assists, and you can't pick between different assists like you can in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And as a result, Marvel 3 had way more experimentation, and you did have teams show up that really surprised people. You had teams of characters that were unpopular and could still win tournaments and place the top 8, whereas in Dragon Ball FighterZ, that doesn't really happen outside of local tournaments. Now don't get me wrong, they're still very high level and very fun to watch, but when it comes to EVO or Combo Breaker, all the big tournaments, you're seeing the same 3 characters over and over again in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Killer Instinct, oh man, we gotta talk about Killer Instinct. So this game has a very special place in my heart, because it is the sole reason that I got an Xbox One. And I remember carrying that thing down to the meeting area of my local university. It was kind of next to the cafeteria. It was the big lounge, and we would just play Killer Instinct. Even back when it only had like 4 or 5 characters when the game first came out. We were playing it and having a very good time. I think it may have started with 6 characters and then had 2 DLC characters, but the point is it was very fun. And honestly, as the game went on, it only got better. Mortal Kombat 9 also was a very big deal. It revived Mortal Kombat, it truly did. It brought the game back to its roots, more 2D fighting, and it really is the fan service game. If you have a favorite character in Mortal Kombat, I almost guarantee you that they're an MK9. Unless you're one of those super hipsters who likes a very bizarre character like Darius. Like, Darius is my boy. I'm a Darius main. They don't have Darius. You know, that's fun. You can love Darius. But as far as the main iconic characters go, pretty much every single one was an MK9. However, in terms of gameplay, I really do think that MKX is superior. Not just to play, but also to watch. To this day, I still get hype watching Mortal Kombat X at a high level. Now, I will say that playing it can be a bit frustrating, especially for casual players, because if you don't know what you're doing in that game, you get completely stomped on. Whereas in MK11, there are so many different comeback mechanics that kind of help to prop you up and give you a fighting chance, but in MK9, if the opponent knows what they're doing to a T, you're just gonna die. Like, there's no way you're gonna win. And that's the kind of game that MKX is, really. But I just like how this game, if you wanted to take that deep dive and really commit to it, it had something for veteran players. It really did. The same with King of Fighters 13, and let's be real. King of Fighters 13 might be the best 2D fighting game to come out this decade. It really might be. Now this game, if you want to talk about depth, this game is the deep end of the pool. You know what? No, it's the ocean. This game is the ocean. It is crazy deep and very difficult. If you're not a good fighting game player, a seasoned veteran, you will drown trying to play this game. But at the same time, I don't think there's a more hype 2D fighting game to watch, even if you're not quite sure what's going on. And it's also 3v3, but the characters wait their turn, and that's very interesting. Now some characters, there was still strategy to it, because some characters required meter to pull off impressive stuff, whereas other characters could build meter faster for the other character, and then some characters just didn't need meter. And based on that information, you could structure your team accordingly. So there was still a reason to pick characters in a certain order and also pair up characters in a certain way. Alright, and at this point in the video, I think it's time to just start dragging games up here and just trying to rapid fire, and then once we get all them up here, we're gonna start making some final changes. So Marvel Infinite, despite how it looked and excluding certain characters and having all that negative press, I gotta say it's very fun to play. It's not super pretty to look at, but my goodness, at a casual level, it's super fun. Guilty Gear Xrd? I actually enjoy this game more than King of Fighters 13, but it's not fair to put it in front just because I prefer it, because this game, my goodness, is just a marvel. Dead or Alive 6 is so much fun to play, it really, really is. Don't freak out that it's here right now. Once again, I may change it and move it somewhere else, but this game is so much fun. Dead or Alive 5 may have had a bigger impact on the FGC, but this game is just so brilliant and so much fun to play. I think adding meter was a very good idea, and it doesn't, like, the entire game doesn't revolve around it. The meter is just something additional. Kind of like how Tekken 7 has the rage arts and the rage drives. That's not the core aspect of the game, but it's a wonderful addition that makes it feel fresh. Oh, well, hello Injustice 2. I think I'll put you right behind. You can't even see it on the tier list. My god, it's like transparent. I'm going to put you right behind MK9 for now, but once again, may end up moving things around. Soul Calibur 6, also so much fun to play. I personally want to put Soul Calibur 6 in front of Fighters just because I feel like Soul Calibur 6 is the apex of what a 3D fighting game can be. And if not for a couple of new mechanics, I would like it so much more than Tekken 7. I already enjoy playing it more, but it'd be pretty hard to convince someone who's knowledgeable about fighting games that this is better than Tekken 7 because some of those new mechanics are so cheap and really do dumb down the game in some regards, but I still love it nonetheless, and I think the characters are also very fun. In Tekken, I feel like the characters play not similarly, but they're all doing similar things. But because Soul Calibur 6 has weapons, every character feels entirely different. They're far more unique, and it's so much easier to move around and take advantage of the 3D aspect of the game, so I feel like it centers a lot more around the movement than Tekken 7 does. Now, where is Tekken 7? Tekken 7 is crazy. Tekken 7's gotta be up here, right? It's crazy. I really do like Tekken 7. I don't think I enjoy it more than MKX as far as playing. You know what, I probably do, just because MKX doesn't have the balance that Tekken 7 offers. This is tough, man. This is a really tough list to do, but I don't want to limit myself to like only a few games. I want to try and include all the ones that I can. I'm gonna be honest, I've never played Under Night In-Birth ever. I do like some of the characters though, and some of them do live on in cross-tag battle, so we can't underestimate that. I still think it belongs in front of Marvel Infinite, for sure, but maybe not in front of cross-tag battle. Should cross-tag battle be in front of Street Fighter V? I don't know. I really don't know. I think Street Fighter V, despite how inconsistent it can be in terms of animations and art style, I still think it's more cohesive than cross-tag battle, if that makes sense. Samurai Showdown. So where should Samurai Showdown go? I think right behind cross-tag battle feels pretty good. Some people have told me in the comments this is their favorite fighting game. It's just their favorite. For me personally, and once again, I'm not only going off my preference, but for me, I like combos and fast-paced action. This game is the opposite of that. It's a lot more methodical, it's a lot more thinking involved, and the combos are very short. You could almost argue there's no combos at all for a lot of the characters, and supers do so much damage. You can lose like 75% health from a super. It is the opposite of what I like in a fighting game. If someone takes off that much health from me, I want it to be because they did a sick combo, not because I whiffed an attack and they got a really powerful super. I don't want that. I want combos and I want fast-paced action. I don't mind footsies like Street Fighter V, but I still like the combos, and I want to lose because you did something really impressive combo-wise, not because you just out-footsied me. Oh boy, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. That's gotta be up here in the top row, right? I'm definitely not very great at Smash Bros. Ultimate, but I can still recognize why a character is good and why certain tools are very useful, so I still enjoy making the beginner's guides, and the Smash community was very nice to me about that stuff. I could tell that most of the viewers were not from my community. They were not already subscribed. They just stopped by and watched the video and thought it was pretty good. They also offered for some really nice advice, which did shock me, because I've seen all the rage and salt from the pro level of Smash, but that does not reflect the community as a whole. A lot of them are surprisingly chill. The competitive scene can get a bit crazy, but that makes them unique and adorable and eccentric in a way too. But the regular casual online community and offline community is actually surprisingly chill and accepting, and I was surprised by that. Alright, Fighting EX Layer. So this game I have not touched, even though I do genuinely like a lot of the character designs. The animations though, it's just hard to win me over. They look so different to what I like about animations. I want fluid movement, or if it's choppy, I want it to be very solid with all the key poses. EX Layer is definitely gameplay first, and everything else is secondary. Though the game looks pretty good too, when you consider how small the team was and how small the budget was. It really is a passion project, and I do still love the character, so it's very impressive what they pulled off. I think it makes sense to put it in front of Samurai Showdown, but behind Cross Tag Battle. And as far as what a fighting game is supposed to be, I like it more than Samurai Showdown because it still has long combos and all that fun stuff, crazy action, pretty fast paced honestly, so I do enjoy it more than Samurai Showdown. And just to be fair, I feel like I do have to put King of Fighters 14 up here somewhere, so I think right in front of Marvel Infinite. Part of me kinda wants to put it in front of Under Night in Birth 2, but I'm not entirely sure. You know what? Because my preference is a bit of a factor in this, I do think I'll put it in front of Under Night in Birth. Even though I do like some of the characters in this and it's very hyped to watch at tournaments, and I can't argue the community is more active than this one is, I feel like. But even so, I think the King of Fighters 14 might be a better fighting game overall. This is tough. I'm trying really hard to balance my personal opinion with objective information that I'm aware of, and it's very difficult. I feel like, I don't know, this game has survived. Like, it's the one who lived. It's the Harry Potter of fighting games. It's still alive. And now it's time for MK11. I'm sure you're all wondering where this game sits in my opinion. So one important thing to consider is this game is still very young, and you can't argue that it's the most balanced Mortal Kombat. It really is. But the reason that's the case is because the characters are very similar, and a lot of the mechanics have been simplified to make them even more similar in that regard as well. So the game might be the most balanced, but I do have to admit that the characters who have the most interesting playstyles just don't work well in this game. Instead, it's the characters who are the most straightforward with good footsies, decent damaging combos, and reliable crushing blows. Those characters seem to be the strongest, whereas the fun characters with crazy different playstyles, all that fun stuff seems to go by the wayside because they're trying to focus on the fundamentals of a footsie-based fighting game. So while I do think MK11 is more balanced than MKX will ever be at this point, I still think that MKX is more fun to watch, and honestly, if you're willing to put the work in, it's also more fun to play, and I think the roster is also a bit stronger as well, at least for now. When Kombat Pack 2 comes out, if it ever does, we may have a lot more returning characters, and the core mechanics might change too. There may be some buffs and nerfs to certain characters. Perhaps those playstyles that aren't as straightforward will become more powerful, and the more simple characters will become a bit weaker. Who knows, only time will tell. But I feel like right now, MKX is just more fun to watch, and if you're committed to fighting games and getting good at a fighting game, MKX just has more to offer you. And I think we finally have every fighting game that I want to include on this list. Now, I'm not going to include certain games like Jump Force, or the Naruto fighting games, or the JoJo fighting games, because those games are more fan base specific. They're not really for fighting game players who just enjoy the fighting gaminess of a fighting game. So now I'm going to go down every single row and make some changes and try to justify the positions that I have right now, and also try to even them out a bit more because this D list just has way too many. Alright, so King of Fighters 13. I'll be honest, I would much rather watch Guilty Gear Xrd Rev 2 than I would King of Fighters 13. But my god, when this game came out, it was so incredibly hype. And the roster is huge, and it is so deep. It's a phenomenal 2D fighting game, and it's also pixel based, so it looks gorgeous and timeless. Guilty Gear also looks fantastic as well graphics wise, and once again, I prefer it to King of Fighters 13, but I just can't put it in front in my heart of hearts. Killer Instinct. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep Killer Instinct on the A list, honestly. I have to think about that. I'm not sure if it can be in front of... You know what? I'm going to leave it in front of Smash Bros. Ultimate. Even though this game, let's be real, in terms of popularity and how many copies it's sold, it's up here. But in terms of just being a genuine fighting game that deserves to be in front of everything, I don't think it should be here. Instead, I think we may have to put like Ultra Street Fighter 4 up here instead, or maybe Tekken 7. Like, it's just hard to ignore how important these games have been in the grand scheme of things. Alright, so now we have B tier, so Smash Bros is probably not going to move. It's going to stay at the front here. Ultimate Marvel 3. Definitely a very impressive game. And I love how they continue to this day to constantly like find new teams and new competitive like ideas and assists and all this new synergy. But I think Tekken 7 continues to push the envelope and to show what a 3D fighting game can be. They're also adding new mechanics regularly, and they're adding more characters, all that stuff. And I think as far as like a final destination for fighting game players go, that's why Tekken 7 is growing in popularity. Because you have so many fighting game players who are starting off with a Mortal Kombat game, or maybe Street Fighter 5, or maybe even Fighters or Soul Calibur, but then they move on to Tekken 7 because that game has more depth, they're told, and that game is more balanced, they're told. And they move to this game and a lot of them choose to stay. I think that's why Tekken 7 is growing, and that's why I want to put it here, because once you play all of these games and then decide to play some Tekken, a lot of players just never go back. It's one of those games that just grabs you and never lets go. I've already said quite a lot about Marvel 3, so I don't want to reiterate too much here, but it is the gold standard, I feel, of 3v3 fighting games. It really is. There's a lot more customization than there is for Dragon Ball FighterZ, and the ease of entry isn't as low as it is for Dragon Ball FighterZ. The characters feel more unique in this game. It's also far more fast-paced, has some better comeback factors in my opinion. There's a lot more fun synergy, a lot more experimentation, and that's why it's here. MKX, to me, is just the most fun to watch, and it's the most fun to play. Don't get me wrong, MK9 is also fun to watch and fun to play, but the game is also kind of goofy. I feel like it's barely at that competitive level. It's mostly a game for people who just enjoy Mortal Kombat and want to play it at the casual level. Because if you do push that envelope and keep going further and further, you realize that there's really only 5 or 6 characters you can play and be competitively viable. Because this game had some ridiculous frame data and some ridiculous armor and invincibility, all that crazy stuff. And then right behind it right now we have MK11. I think MK11 might be tied with Soul Calibur 6 for very different reasons. Once again, I don't really like how MK11 was overly simplified, and I don't like all the crazy comeback mechanics. I don't like how the super is your reward for getting your butt kicked. I don't like how there's no screen freeze, you just get hit by it, it armors right away, like on frame 5. And I don't like how crushing blows happen just because I pressed a button. I don't like how because I failed to break your throw, your next throw is going to do a full combo amount of damage. That's ridiculous. You throw me twice and I've lost 40% health. That seems just crazy to me, and some characters can't even do it. So it's kind of ridiculous in that regard. If MK11 didn't have the crushing blows and the fatal blows, I'd probably put it in front of MKX in terms of how balanced it is and how anyone can pick it up and play it, but it still has depth. But honestly, I feel like it's right here, and I almost want to put Soul Calibur 6 in front. And this is going to be a heavy opinion decision, because objectively MK11 has a bigger community. But honestly, outside of that, I feel like Soul Calibur 6 is winning in every way, because Soul Calibur 6 has a lot more depth to it, and once again, it is like the apex of what a 3D fighting game can become. The only reason it's not further up on this list is because it has some of those new mechanics that hold it back. And just like MK11, they were trying to even the playing field between casual players and really good players with those new mechanics. But even so, Soul Calibur 6, if you're a better player, you're going to win every single time. No beginner is going to stumble across their buttons and beat someone who plays every day. It's just not going to happen. And also, once again, the characters all feel a lot more unique in this game. Despite the universal mechanics, there's only like 1 or 2 things that every character can do. Outside of that, every character plays very unique, and because it is a 3D fighting game, it feels a lot more balanced because every character, because you can move around and you can duck and you can sidestep, every character has some way to beat what the opponent is doing, even if that character is higher up on the tier list. And then we have Dragon Ball FighterZ and Dead or Alive 6. I'm gonna be honest, in terms of which one I enjoy playing more, it would be Dead or Alive 6 because you really can outthink your opponent whereas Dragon Ball FighterZ, especially online, is just about overwhelming the opponent visually. You are trying to do as many sneaky overheads and lows as you can, you're trying to throw any chance you get, you're trying to do a beam attack or an explosion that hides your character so you can go for more mix-ups, but that's what the game boils down to, especially online. And the game has a very simple, straightforward combo system. There are advanced combos for sure, but you can get easy damage by pressing like 2 buttons in this game, and it's not very tough to do. Now once again, at a high level at an offline tournament, there are some really tough combos that players can do consistently, and it's very impressive. I wish the game was honestly more like that, but it does have some very easy auto combos and pseudo combos and a move that chases you down and goes through projectiles, all that stuff. It has a teleport move, which is plus on block, and on top of all of that, the game still isn't very balanced at a high level. I feel like online you can play pretty much any character and have fun, as long as you're not someone like me who leans to the salty side. As long as you're not that kind of player, you can enjoy playing pretty much any team. I really do feel that way, and the game looks phenomenal. It's one of the best looking fighting games to come out. You can't argue that, and it's very true to the anime, which is very impressive. I feel like Dead or Alive 6 and Dragon Ball FighterZ would be tied, but let's be real, Dragon Ball FighterZ added so many new players to the community of fighting games, and people still play it. It's never going to die until a sequel comes out at some point in the inevitable future. But until that happens, this game has done so much for the fighting game community, and that's why I have to put it in front of Dead or Alive 6, even though I do think this game is more fun to play for me personally. And finally, we have this bottom row, so Mortal Kombat 9. I'm going to put Injustice 2 in front of MK9. I know you can't see it, but that's Injustice 2 right there. Street Fighter 5 can come up here too. And then I think we have all of these games on the bottom row. I think this list is shaping up pretty well. I like how it turned out. Alright, so there you have it everyone, my top fighting games for this decade. Once again, it is very likely that you do not agree with me, so please post your tier list in the comment section down below. And then while you're down there, please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, it really does help my channel out a ton. And finally, why not keep that combo going by subscribing and ringing that bell. That way you never miss a future video. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.